All right, so today we're going to go over recovery, and I thought this was super fitting coming off of the 15K yesterday that we had a lot of really great performances at, but really even just in general from a training perspective after like the hard training sessions, after long training sessions. For those of you that are going to join us again in the fall for the half marathon camp where we go longer, this will become even more valuable, but definitely valuable after the race yesterday and all the efforts that went into that. Okay, the recovery response to exercise is the source of improvement. We can very easily get caught up in the mile repeats and the hard workouts and what I'll more say is the like sexy side of training, like what we want to post on Strava, what we want to tell our friends, these great races that we had, etc. But where we actually improve is how well we are able to recover from those type of efforts, as opposed to the effort itself. Because if you did that effort, every day or too close together and you can't recover, then you're not going to get anything from those workouts. And if you're going too hard on the workouts, if your recovery isn't right, even within a workout, like the recovery period in between the mile repeats, if it's 30 seconds or you're doing it too fast, you should really be taking 3 minutes, just depending on the workout, you won't get what you want to out of it also. So really the best athletes in the world are probably the best athletes at recovering than anything else, that they can nail their sessions, but then they can also turn off, they can recover. And we'll go through different types of recovery, how you can recover, etc. today. So here's the goal of recovery. It's really to restore your baseline of stress that you've just had. You have this massive stress. So let's take the 15K yesterday. You just had this massive stress of this race. And so how do we restore you back to baseline after having that, not only the physiological breakdown, but also that mental and psychological breakdown that we've been amping up for this race for 12, 13 weeks. We're writing out timelines. We're getting, there's a certain amount of stress that goes into race day from a mental side. You're pushing hard in the race. Things get tough. You're coming up with those mantras, etc. So we also want to be able to recover from that so that we can continue to train, but also we can absorb the effort from yesterday. So yes, it was a race. We're all excited. We had these, great performances, but then our ability to recover from that race sets us up that was a huge training stimulus also, that we got better yesterday. Even if you didn't have the race that you wanted, you were out there working hard for 9 miles. Think of if we went out and did like a 9-mile tempo run, you would get better from that. So that's what we're, you also want to make sure you cover so you get the benefits from that. So when you're doing intense training, and this can be running, it can be weightlifting, it can be cross training, anytime you're working really hard and putting your muscles under a lot of stress, we can have that musculoskeletal damage or that breakdown of your muscles, which is a lot of times why you're sore. You get those micro tears in the muscle. It's not that you tore it in half or you had some type of tendon injury where you're bruised and it blew up. That's definitely to the extreme. But we have these little micro tears in the muscle when I'm sure everybody, like if you've done lunges, after you haven't done them for a long time and you're really sore the next day, that's because of that muscle breakdown, those micro tears in the muscle. But then it stimulates to the body to build back stronger next time, build those muscles back stronger to be ready for your next bout of that. So we need to recover from that. There has actually been blood samples taken from athletes after a tough race, and they will show a lot of abnormalities systemically, particularly have elevated cortisol, which is our stress hormone, and also creatine kinase. And that's when it's really high, when I don't know if anybody's heard of like CrossFit athletes that end up getting like rhabdo, where they put their liver under so much stress because of an increase of that creatine kinase from extreme muscle damage. They used to be a lot harder to do, but there are instances of that when you're pushing it from both a muscular standpoint and an endurance standpoint at the same time without having that recovery. So if anybody's was supposed to be getting blood work this week, I would encourage you to hold off, because it's probably not going to be a great indicator of like your true health, like just general health, because of these different blood levels that are going to be a little off from the race over the weekend. So we also want to make sure that those come down. But with the proper recovery time, the body bounces back stronger. Like I was saying, it was a huge training stimulus yesterday. So as long as we take that time to recover, and we'll talk about this at the end with our workout tomorrow of how we might want to modify for those of you that raced, to make sure that we are recovering from that stress and we don't get more and more and more. I see this a lot with marathon, like post-marathon, especially like the first marathon for runners, especially if it's a really good race, that they want to keep going, that, oh, that went really well, I don't want to take any rest time, I don't want to take any downtime. And it might be okay for a couple of weeks, it might be okay for a month, but it will catch up with you after that massive effort. And that's not to downplay the 15K. Like this 15K might have been a marathon for some of you guys, that if that's the longest you've run, it's the longest you've raced, your body's never done something that long. We want to make sure it recovers and that we don't start digging a hole that you're not recovered. And then we get back to training and then you're like, I've never raced well the last 3 months since the 15K. And it can all be solved like this first week or two after the race to make sure that we recover in between. So very, very important. And like I said, it's like the non-sexy side of training that you get to sit around. It's the easy side. And kind of like I mentioned with the risk of not recovering, of athletes who don't focus on rest and recovery, you just roll the dice a bit more with that overtraining, also mental burnout. We can't be on all the time mentally to turn around and do another race next week and another race, 3 weeks later. And then we keep going. And it can be really easy to get into that cycle, even, subconsciously, accidentally, in this area, because we have so many great races and there's always a 5K to do. There's always a 15K. Like there's always something going on the weekend. There's all these different series races going on all the time. And it can just set you up for that mental burnout. And even if you want to do those series races, thinking about what your goal for those races are. So am I going and I'm doing it a tempo effort? So you're not hyping yourself up that this is my A race. Just changing the goal you might have for that, instead of every race has to be my A race and I'm turning around and doing back to back to back. You also have an increased risk of injury just because you're putting your body through that muscle breakdown over and over, not letting it recover. So your chance of, especially those running related injuries, of tendon type issues, ligaments, even bone injuries, if you're not letting that recover in between, because even your bones have a little bit of breakdown. We want to make sure they can recover between efforts. So another reason to really make sure that you're recovering in between. So 2 to 3 days of rest early on can really save you that down the road where you're going to have to take 2 to 3 weeks to feel like you have to dig yourself out of this hole and you're frustrated. And what's wrong with me? I ran this great 15K a month ago and now I can't run a mile at that pace, etc. So take these next couple days, to rest and to really listen to your body. You're not, I think athletes almost think, I don't know if it's like being soft or I don't want to do it or I can push through. Listen to your body these next couple days instead of pushing through. And we'll talk about this. Well, we'll talk about active recovery. If we're going light enough and we're just moving our body like lightly, that can also be recovery. We just have to keep it light enough to not go nuts. So briefly, I want to talk about short-term and long-term recovery. So short-term recovery will typically, and this is just physiologically, happens within hours of a workout or event. This can be low-intensity training after a workout. This is like your cool down at the end. That's that short-term recovery. That's getting in the nutrition that you need shortly after. That's what I would say for like a normal training cycle. This would be how to recover for it. The next day, doing recovery runs, etc. More the long-term recovery is if we're looking at a training plan globally, that we're building in like an off season where we're taking a planned week to 2 off of running after a big event to let the body recover, to reset. And then we're jumping into, our next training plan, or it could be, several weeks if you're going on vacation, etc. But that's more that long-term plan to promote long-term development so that we don't get burnt out. Okay, so here's a couple types of recovery and we'll go, kind of deep through some of these. So sleep is always going to be your number one recovery tool. That is probably most overlooked by athletes and just humans in general. We're trying to fit so much into a 24-hour day. I am definitely guilty of this, that sleep ends up being, what gets neglected. And that's where kind of the magic happens. We have all these other types of recovery we'll talk about, and there's so many magic recovery tools out there with the compression boots and the massage guns and massage and hydrotherapy and now the cold plunges and the saunas. And sleep is going to be much more effective than pretty much all of those combined. So making sure that you're getting enough sleep, especially this week as you guys are recovering from the effort for those that raced, is going to be really important. And athletes who were sleep deprived are at a risk of losing your aerobic endurance. And it can, especially for when you start to have like some hormonal changes that end up happening. If this is like perfect, you're yawning as I'm doing this. Somebody's tired. I am too. Which then can lead to those higher levels of cortisol, which is that stress hormone, decrease in human growth hormone, which is what really helps us repair our tissue, build muscle, etc. So restricting sleep to less than 6 hours a night for 3 or more nights in a row has been shown to impair cognitive performance. So impair, your mental state, how well you're able to function, as well as mood, your glucose metabolism. So how well you're able to metabolize and your body's able to use, whether it's carbs, sugar, etc., your appetite regulation, and even immune function. And I think a lot of that ends up being common sense. We just either don't want to admit it or don't think about it, that we know our mood's off when we're not sleeping. We know we have a higher tendency or an increased risk of getting sick. Our appetite might be, we crave, foods that aren't great for us, or we're eating late at night, or we're on coffee all the time just to get through the day. So just a few things that end up being affected by lack of sleep. And then based on research, it may take more than 30 hours of sleep deprivation to affect anaerobic activity. So that's that really short stuff that doesn't require oxygen, but aerobic performance decreases within a couple of days. So that's mostly what we're doing as endurance athletes and endurance runners, is more that aerobic side. That anaerobic side we very rarely tap into. So that aerobic performance really starts to decrease even with only a couple of days of lacking sleep. And you think about what that does when we're at normal baseline, and now we've come off a race over the weekend that we're trying to recover from. We really need to prioritize sleep this week. I would encourage all of you guys. All right, hydrotherapy. So this is widely used. This is more like the cold plunge type of trend, I would say. It's been used for years and years. When I was up in Gainesville, it looked like a hot tub. It was in the training room. It's in ground. It looked like a hot tub, but it constantly kept the water cool, and it was about 50 degrees. And so we would get in there all the time in the cold tank. So a lot of people swear by this. There's a lot of, other kind of mixed research of whether it's effective or not from like a systemic health standpoint, but from just recovery from your muscles. Again, research is all over the place, but a lot of people think it helps. I swear by it. I think it helps me. I know people that use it and don't think it helps much, but I was doing this like just in my bathtub with ice and water all through marathon training 2 to 3 times a week after my hard runs, after my long runs. I felt like I was able to recover better. Now we actually invested in a cold plunge tub at home, and I'm in it 2 to 3 days a week. And I noticed a big difference. I will say that on here, it has this optimal, immersion therapy, 50 to 55 degrees. And this is going to vary a little bit depending on if I just go up to my hips to soak my legs. There's now, complete, you completely go under, you're putting your head under, you're sitting up to your neck. So the temperature is going to vary depending on how much you're quote unquote plunging. And then also the difference between men and women. So when you're actually plunging and going under, the optimal temperature for men is close to 40 degrees, but this 50 to 55 degrees is what's optimal for women. I just did, oversight to put that in here. If we go much colder than that for females, our temperature regulation just isn't quite, it's a little higher. So we don't regulate temperature quite as well as men do. And it can send our hormones kind of all out of whack if we do it too much of going into excessively cold water under that 50 degrees. So ladies, if you're going to do this or you're going to soak, keep it at 50 to 55 degrees. Guys, if you want to go a little colder, you can, but I haven't seen any research that it's significantly better for you to go colder. I think you could just tolerate it a bit colder. And the theory is that it has changes in blood flow that occur due to the temperature changes, may help with the inflammation, may help with immune function. I think my biggest thing is muscle soreness. I feel like I, feel better afterwards. And you can take a hot shower after this. It's not that you have to stay cold, right afterwards. You're getting that, vasoconstriction of all your blood vessels, that they get cold and they kind of shrink. And then it opens up bigger when you warm up, and whether that's naturally or in a hot shower. Some people will say it needs to be, you just slowly let your body warm up. But again, I haven't seen any conclusive evidence that you have to do it that way. So then here's our active recovery. So this would be like cool down is going to be the beginning of that active recovery as you're moving, to try to flush some of those toxins that are in your blood. Also just try to get your muscles moving so that you don't get done a hard effort and you just sit down and then you get really tight and cramp up, like I'm sure some of you guys have experienced. So this helps clear the lactate, other metabolic waste, via the increase in oxygen delivery and increased blood flow. So you're getting your heart rate up a little bit to help clear that out, but we're not going hard. So one of the biggest mistakes I see with runners, especially in very type A personalities, is they do this active recovery too hard, that we go out and we more make it very aerobic, and we're letting our heart rate come up too much and we're not able to recover. So this should be super, super easy. Like you should be like, this just feels way too easy. Like, am I even doing anything? I would equate this to like every once in a while I'll get in our pool and just do like some aqua jogging. So I'll just kind of run in place. I'll do some leg swings and I can talk with the boys. I can have full conversations. Like my heart rate doesn't increase very much. And I would say that's about what you want if you're truly doing active recovery. If you're running, you're going significantly slower than even your easy pace with the goal of just flushing everything out. Your goal is not to increase your aerobic fitness with something like this. So then nutrition, and these were in no particular order because I think nutrition would probably be right up there with sleep if I was going to put them in like a hierarchy of how effective they are. But this is going to be very crucial. And we've talked about this a little bit with when you get done workouts, making sure you're getting it in as you're fueling during races, during workouts, during long runs. But this is going to be way more effective. And you should, pay attention to this and put a lot more into this than, like getting in a cold tongue, investing in a cold plunge and some of these other things that we're going to think about, because this is the fuel that's going to help build your body back up after it breaks down. So refueling after training is crucial to help your body get the most from your workouts and then to go into your next one recharged and refueled. And this is workouts and race. So within 30 minutes of completing your workout or race, is when you could begin refueling with a snack or a meal. A lot of times getting a meal in that quickly isn't always plausible depending on where you are, but getting in some type of recovery drink, anything you can get in is going to be really helpful. These should include, your carbs, you want a little bit of protein, sports drinks, etc. And I would say even this week, your body's still repairing for days after the race for those of you that did the 15K. So we want to make sure that you're paying attention to get in, really good quality protein this week to help rebuild your muscles. Don't think, oh, well, my running volume's a little low this week. I think I won't eat as much during the day. Your body actually needs more to help recover from this big effort over the weekend than you think it does, and probably even more than training like the week leading up to it. So just because your volume is a little lower this week, you're not running quite as much, does not mean to start limiting like, oh, I need to only eat salads and not get carbs in. I need to be careful in calorie count. Please don't do that this week. That's going to greatly hinder your recovery just as much as sleep. So massage is another widely used strategy among athletes. Research, again, it's kind of all over the place of whether it's conclusive or not. Some people feel like it really helps. Some people don't. I think some of the benefits also aren't even necessarily muscularly. Like I know when I get them, there's a benefit of being in a dark room without your phone, like without my kids around, that I can just like check out for an hour and not be connected. So I think there's a huge benefit to that outside of just the physiological benefits of like getting your muscles flushed and getting you to relax and focusing on tight spots and stretches, etc. But there have been several reviews of the effective massage that have concluded that while it's beneficial in improving physiological aspects of recovery, which is more that muscular side, what your body's doing, most evidence isn't conclusive to support it to improve recovery of functional performance long-term. Your body is very good at recovery if you're giving it enough nutrition, if you're giving it enough sleep, etc. This is kind of icing on the cake if you're looking at those elite athletes that are looking for that last 1%, or if you have a niggle or a tight area, this can be really beneficial. But generally, if you have nothing that's bothering you or going on, research is kind of all over the place. Same with the hydrotherapy, that some people have great results, some people don't. So potential benefits, but I wouldn't put all your eggs in this basket either. All right, compression garments is another one that a lot of people love. This can be like compression socks. They make compression pants. And it can improve that joint awareness. And so that what that means is It improves like your ability to feel a joint or be aware of a joint. So if you have something going on with your run form, I see it a lot with runners that end up like scuffing their toes or almost have this drop foot going on, that having a compression Garmin gives that awareness and gives that feedback to their brain to activate those muscles to move. It can help if you have any type of like niggle going on, if your ankle, your calf, you have a history of Achilles tendinopathies or Achilles issues, etc. Some of those compression garments can help feel like there's more support around there. But again, there's research is all over the place with being conclusive if they really work or not. But no research has shown a negative impact on performance. So if this is something you really like to do, or if you have really sore calves after hard workouts, then this might be something for you to try. But again, just another one of the things that might work. All right, so that's all I have on recovery itself. I want to touch on this workout for tomorrow. So we're going to be at the Housing Loop tomorrow. Email will go out this afternoon. And we have 5 to 6 by 3 minutes is what I have planned for everybody. And these are the 3 minutes build. So it's 1 minute threshold, 1 minute interval, 1 minute repetition, and then you get 2 minutes easy. So there's no break in between each of those 1 minute. It's just 3 minutes that you're building through the whole time. And then you get 2 minutes easy. I put in Final Surge and I put it, down here at the bottom, that if you race the 15K and you're feeling fatigued or tightness from the race, there's one of two things I recommend: either making it 3 to 4 rounds instead of 6. So bringing that overall volume of intensity down and then running the rest of it easy. Or if you are feeling excessively fatigued, if you're sore at all, like tightness is kind of okay, but if you're sore at all, I would suggest that you run easy if you're still sore tomorrow instead of trying to do a workout. And those would be your whoops, as I'm going all over the place. Those would be your two options. That this is very fitting coming off of the recovery talk of the 15K that, like I've mentioned a couple times, we want to make sure you're recovering from that effort. And that effort was just yesterday morning. And then here we are, not that much more than 48 hours going to do a hard effort. And, in a perfect world, I might move this to Thursday of this week, but trying to do that logistically with a large camp that we're going to move it to Thursday for 1 week. And then we have the long run on Sunday. It just gets way too complicated with work schedules and life schedules and kid schedules and all the things. So, and we also have people in camp that didn't race. So we have to be mindful of that. So we're going to be out there. The plan is a 3-minute effort. It's built into everybody's Garmins for those that have it connected. But please listen to your body and either decrease the number of 3 minutes that you're doing or just run easy out there. Like you can be out with friends still, run easy. You can cheer people on, get your body moving. I think there is a big benefit to that. But don't go too hard or be a hero tomorrow, especially if you race and you're sore from the weekend. All right. And then do we have any questions related to recovery, the workouts, running, anything?
So just going on into the Eat My Crust 5K, like how does that look as far as our workouts and like how they're changing and distances and stuff like that?
Yeah, they'll be much shorter. We won't have any efforts as part of the long run for the next couple weeks. They'll just be steady aerobic runs. You probably notice your long run isn't as long this week. So it should be very similar to the week before the 15K of the distance of the long run. So a little shorter, still recovering from the 15K. That'll come up next week a little bit. It won't be a ton. And then the Tuesdays will be much more focused on some like shorter speed, dialing in 5K. At the end of the day, we only have 3 weeks. So it's not that we're going to do this massive 5K training plan, but you guys do have this, massive fitness base from training for the 15K that we can trickle in, kind of sprinkle some speed in there. We just want to get your legs turning over and then you can tap into that fitness that we've already made. So this week will probably be the longest workout that we do. We're at the track next week, so that'll definitely be shorter. And just getting the legs turning over and some of that faster VO2 max stuff, more at like repetition pace.
And can you promise that the Eat My Crust 5K temperature will still be the same as the temperature we had this weekend?
I don't want the responsibility of being able to control the temperature. I will say I was talking to Ed when we looked at the forecast for this weekend. He said, oh, this might be the last cold front. I've heard a lot of people say that. Historically, and I think we will get one more. So I remember warming up for Eat My Crust in a long sleeve shirt for a couple years. So whether the next cool front comes around Eat My Crust or the weekend before. I have no control over that, but I think there is hope that we will have decent weather for it historically. And it's only a 5K, so if it's a little warmer than the 15K, that's okay. Do we have any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
I do have a question, but did
Yes.
you want to say hi first?
Hi.
Hey.
And you walk away. Okay. I have a question. Yeah, I know.
That's a
He knew
great
that.
one.
Yeah, he knew that. Congrats. Congrats, Jen. Okay, a question. So in a few weeks, which is next month, I think Jody is here too. I have 4 half marathons back to back in 4 days. As much, I mean, I think my record is only 3 half marathon in a row. So what is your recommendation for recovery wise between we're not going to drive that far away, maybe at the longest will be like 3 hours the last day, but I think I'm kind of curious, what is the best practical way to do recovery?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, and the 2 biggest ones, like I kind of talked about today, are sleep and nutrition. So I would say that as soon as you get done the race, making sure that you're getting in really good nutrition, that you're getting in your good carbs, your good protein, and that might look like a recovery drink when you first get done within that first 30 minutes. But then within like an hour, hour and a half, getting in a really good meal. So whether that's like a breakfast type meal, like an eggs and omelet type thing, a lunch, but getting in a good quality meal to start that recovery process, making sure you're covering or you're hydrating throughout the day. So water, electrolytes, and then still making sure you're getting in a decent amount of carbs throughout the day because you want to get ready for the next day and have that energy for the next day. And then sleep, you know, trying to be really mindful of these races. I'm guessing don't start at like 10 a.m. So you're going to be up early for several days in a row. So making sure you're getting to sleep on the earlier side, taking a nap if that's an option, depending on how much you guys have to drive in between. But I think prioritizing sleep and nutrition are going to be the 2 big ones. And then especially if you're driving, but even, you know, if you're not, thinking about that active recovery of, you don't just want to sit around all afternoon. You know, you don't want to go out and like walk miles, but some very light stretching, some light walking around. If you've done any type of like ice baths, that might be something at the hotel, you know, to, you know, do like fill up with cool water, even like a cool shower that can help. So if I was going to do it, that would be my big things, is making sure you're getting in nutrition, quality nutrition shortly after the race. And then as the day progresses, making sure you're getting in those carbs to prep for the next day, making sure you're getting as much sleep as you can. And even leading up to the event, making sure you don't go into it sleep deprived, and then active recovery.
Right.
Those are probably the 3 big ones.
Okay, would you recommend the ice plunge or ice bath better than the compression machine? Because we normally travel and bringing the travel sized compression machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, I don't know if I have an opinion on one over the other. I would say if you have used the compression more than the ice, I would stick with that so that it's not something new.
Oh, okay.
And if you're used to doing ice, or if that's something you've done in the past, then I would stick to that. I don't think one's drastically better than the other one.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do we have any other questions?
I think David wanna have a question.
What?
What's your question?
Who's crazy enough to do 4 marathons in 4 days?
No.
Oh,
Well,
4
I don't know.
half
You
marathons, know what
married
I mean.
her.
All right. I didn't have an answer for that
You
either.
have a question? No.
What was my question?
I don't know. Okay, never mind,
I'm
Coach.
sorry.
Let me know if you think of it.
Hey, just a quick question too, with me being one of the older runners and hearing those ladies do 4 half marathons in 4 days, that blows my mind that they do that. But you know what? Good for
Mine
them.
too. Mine too.
I'm just finding the older I get, the harder in between efforts recovery is. Any insight on that? It seems like something hurts all the time anymore.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I'm not sure of the specifics since I don't have it in front of me. And I feel like my brain works at 50% capacity right now. Chris
Understand.
is like always making fun of me. I couldn't think of like a smoothie place. And he was like, Mom, it's tropical smoothie. Why can't you think of it? I'm like, because you took half my brain and your brother took the other half. And now I have no more to give your sister now. So this is why I can't function. I know there is research out there that like as we age, it's harder to recover. And we just
Yes.
need more recovery time.
Right.
And so I think it's being careful with the high intensity stuff also, because there's that saying of like intensity kills. So I would guess that it's much easier for you to recover from like a threshold session than
yeah,
if you
those
go
aren't
and do 2 or 400s. That there's a greater risk of injury and it takes longer to recover from the shorter stuff. And so I think it's structuring the week to take the easy runs really easy in between. You're gonna have to pay even more attention to like your nutrition, your hydration. And then, I mean, I kind of do it with you guys anyway. We have the one hard workout and then the quality
Right.
long run. That it used to be like a Tuesday, Thursday hard workout and a Sunday. And I've learned with even myself, it's just not as effective as if we do it one workout a week and then the long run. So I think it's playing around with that structure that maybe we can recover from the long run a little better than the short stuff. So having that Saturday or Sunday to Tuesday is okay. And then having more time in between the other one. But other than that, I don't have like many specifics for you of anything different to change. I think it's just being more mindful.
Just, take those easy runs easy. I think, I look back to the
Yeah.
days where I did a short interval session and then a long interval session and then a long run. And then it's like, I don't know how my body tolerated all that anymore.
Yeah. And there's probably 20 or 30% of people in camp that like, I'm like, slow down your easy runs. Cause I start to notice week after week that like, they just keep getting faster and faster. And I'm like, I'm glad you're feeling good. And I'm glad you're feeling fit. But then we get into this, you're not able to recover from your hard sessions, but you're not going fast enough that you're at threshold pace that you're actually getting better either. So I really don't think your easy runs can be too slow. I know some people will feel like they're a little heavier. It hurts to run too slow. And then it's like, okay, obviously don't run, that slow if it hurts, but easy, run them easy.
Okay. All righty. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I'll hang on for another minute or two if anybody has questions. Oh, you have another question?
Yeah, one more. Front
Me
hip
too.
flexor.
Yes.
So, do you have like how we have all these posters on the wall of like Caitlin's exercise to fix this body
The
part? of
gym
the
is so full.
It's like,
So
we have
I need a picture of this.
we have like charts like
The only space left is on the ceiling, so that's
That's where the hip flexor is going.
pretty much. Do you have that front hip flexor?
I can do that for you. Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, your hip flexor sore. Is that what I'm getting at?
Yeah, because you work on everything. I mean, it's like what's that expression? Like you work on whack-a-mole. You fix 3 things and then the 4th pops up.
Yes. Are they both sore or is it just one?
One more than the other, but they're both sore. Yeah.
Okay.
After
And that's a
like
good sign.
especially after a brick, like
It's
or after biking a
painful
long
or
time and
so?
after running a long time or running harder,
Mm.
just I'm just as the distance or the volume or the speed increases, that just gets worse.
Yes. And we want to address it now as we increase the volume.
okay.
Yeah. Yep. I can do that.
Thank you.
Yes. Jen, did you have something?
I was just gonna give you my takeaway. Sleep more, eat more. Thank you. Thank you.
That's it. Sleep more, eat more.
Excited.
That's what I should have titled the talk. Sleep more, eat more.
Yeah, eat more is easy. Sleep more, not so much.
Homework achieved.
There you go. All right, guys, I'll hang on for another minute or two if somebody thinks of questions. Otherwise, I'll see most of you guys tomorrow at the housing loop, and thanks for hopping on.
Oh, can I go to that?
Thanks.
No,
Yes.
because camp is over.
Ask
Yes.
I need to do that.
the coach.
Okay, yeah, I hope I can make that.
What? Ask the coach.
She said yes. If my medical thing will resolve tomorrow, then I'll be good.
Oh my God.
We'll see how that goes. But I'm looking forward to it if I can.
She hasn't answered yet.
She said yes.
She said
Do they
yes.
know?
I can go to the housing loop tomorrow.
what?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fine.
Lulu, see you there.
Hope so.
Yes. I'll see
Dave, did you
there.
see your picture on Facebook?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll
the
mention.
FCR thing, that was a great finishing picture of you, Jen.
Yes,
You were like
that's
really in the moment there. That was awesome.
I want to make sure that you got,
Yeah, I saw me, but yours was way more interesting.
well, I had the brighter shirt on.
Had you seen the camera there? Because I had no idea that was even being
Oh, I
taken.
saw him there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's your husband.
I don't know how you could miss with
Finish
that
your face.
expression. You're like totally
Well,
posing.
Yeah,
Well,
on that one.
congratulations
Finish your
to
face. You probably have
you,
like
Jen
3 of them.
and Rick.
And
Yeah.
Rick.
Rick did awesome too.
Okay.
Rick did great.
Okay.
Alright,
Bye. Bye,
See you
coach.
tomorrow.
See you
Adios.
guys.
And Caitlin, real quick,
Yeah.
apparently your entire family has a habit of kicking my butt in races. So my last Ironman, the 2012 Florida race, Ed smoked me by about an hour and a half. So I saw that in the results yesterday. I was like, oh, there's Ed Donner. Of course. Yeah, he's going to do like a 9-hour Ironman. Yeah, makes sense. So
Yeah, I had to boogie after I saw pretty much everybody finish at the 15K up to Cocoa Beach to see at least get there for awards because he was up there doing the try yesterday. So the
Nice.
boys were exhausted after all that.
I bet. Awesome.
It's a good
Well,
weekend.
I'll have to chat with him at some point about it because
Yeah, he'll be out there tomorrow.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a great day. We'll see you.
Yep. See you guys.